Welcome to Rory Studios. I'm Dory Korn. I have the distinct honor of introducing Sheriff Kevin McMahill. But before I do so, he asked me to do a couple things. One is, on behalf of the sheriff, his campaign manager, Bradley Mayer, the entire campaign team, a big thank you to Larry Smith, the president of Rory Studios, as well as the owner of Rory Studios. Thank you for being here. And the entire team that helped open up this venue and make this a possibility. The other thing the sheriff asked me to do is to also make sure we recognize some of the dignitaries here, and there's a long list, so I apologize. We don't have everyone marked down in time. But I will just say thank you to the governor for showing up here, as well as Mayor Shirley Berkeley. I know we have several county commissioners and city council men and women, and a lot of local officials as well, state senators and so on and so forth. All of you really appreciate it for being here, and the sheriff really wanted to make sure he said thank you to all of you, as well as some of the other heads of agencies that are here. Now, as I said, I have this honor of being able to introduce the sheriff, and I've worked with him now for nearly 2 decades. And I was thinking last night about how would I introduce him, what would I say? And it occurred to me that all of you, everyone who's sitting here in person, as well as hundreds of people that are joined virtually on the live stream, already know Kevin McMahill. In fact, you know him very well. And it just made me think that you already know that he's extremely compassionate. He's authentic to the core. The relationships that he develops with each of you, the relationships that he pushes the police department to develop with organizations are real and they're meaningful. Everyone understands he has a tremendous work ethic and that he cares deeply and personally about keeping this community safe. In fact, most of you have probably had a conversation with him at one point or another where he reminds you that every one of these crime statistics that we talk about at times, every single one of those represents a victim, a human being. And if you know him really well, you know he gets very angry and personal when someone's victimized in this community. He takes it very personal to heart. These are all things that you know about him. But there are probably a few things that you may not know, and the only reason is because he's not the type of person to brag about himself or to talk about some of the things that he's done. So I'm going to take this opportunity very briefly just to mention a few characteristics that I think are important to recognize as we talk about the re-election of the sheriff here in Clark County. One, Kevin McMahill is clearly battle-tested. What I mean by that is if you look at times in our community where we dealt with chaos and extreme levels of danger, Kevin was there leading from the front. Whether that was 1 October, one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history, where he was extremely decisive as an undersheriff and made a lot of decisions that mitigated a lot of the damage, and also decisions that changed the future of how we police these types of events in the future to be able to keep the community safe. Or if you go into 2020, where we dealt with civil unrest, and tragically, when Officer Shane McMahill was critically shot, most people don't know this, but Kevin was on the ground, right there, not very far away from all the officers leading the men and women of the police department from the front. Not in a command post, not in an office, not on a cell phone, leading from the front. And even if you go into more modern times, because then he was the undersheriff. Now he's an elected sheriff, you would think, okay, maybe as a sheriff, he's in the office. But if you look at more recently when we had an active shooter at UNLV, or Tesla car bombing that happened in front of Trump Towers, Kevin was on scene there, once again leading the men and women of the police department from the front. And it's during those moments of chaos and challenges and issues that we deal with as a community, and fear, when the community is turning to someone to try to be that sense of calm and sense of strength. That's where the sheriff shows up the most, and that's when we need him the most. That's one important characteristic. The other thing is yes, he's an elected official, but he didn't just become the sheriff through politics or through convenience or through just a regular process. He's earned it in the sense that he has now worked every single position on the police department, every single rank, which is a rare thing to do. So when he hired on almost 35 years ago, that's how much experience he has. He started off as a patrol officer, promoted to sergeant, and then lieutenant, became a captain, and then promoted to deputy chief, then became an assistant sheriff, the undersheriff, and today he sits as our sheriff. That is a very unique experience that most people do not have. It makes him incredibly qualified to not only run for re-election, but continue his leadership path for this community. The other thing that's interesting about him, as I wrap up here, is Kevin is someone, as you probably know, but I'll get into a little detail here, is he defies the odds. Not just for himself, but the people around him too. So when we have an issue where something is too expensive, or too time-consuming, or too politically sensitive, or just too difficult to do, he does not shy away. He takes it on, and he does it with so much success. And I'll give you just one example. We just opened up our JETI, the Joint Emergency Training Institute. And this is an unbelievable compound, a complex that basically allows our officers to get advanced training to prepare for the next catastrophe, the next chaos, and make sure that they're safer and that they can better protect the community. Something that was desperately needed after 1 October. But when it was an idea, and all of a sudden people talked about what it would cost to do that, they said it's $35 million, and you'd have to raise it privately. Everyone said it was impossible. Everyone said they don't want to deal with it, they don't want to touch it, that's ridiculous, I have a lot of other work to do, except Kevin McMahill. He took on that project years ago, and went through a tremendous journey, some ups, some downs, to try to figure out how to get it done. And guess what? We opened up that JETI, now a $35 million raise thanks to him, a very successful, and thanks to all the donors, of course, but his leadership leading that effort has made a difference. Now, the last thing I'll just say, think about Kevin McMahill. He doesn't do it by himself, and it's not just the people in general around him, but he comes from a family of service. You look at the McMahill family, joining him today here, his wife, Kelly McMahill, who was retired deputy chief in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. She herself, trailblazer in her own right, but also generations of leadership from military service all the way to police service, including new generations of young officers that are on the force now that represent the McMahill family. And the reason why I bring that up is this is not a job for Kevin or his family. This, for him, it's a mission to try to keep this community safe. It's something that he can't resist from doing. He loves this. He does it with passion, and he does it extremely effectively. So as we get ready here to kick off this night, and we talk about raising funds and raising support and ensuring that he remains the sheriff of Clark County and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, it should be a no-brainer for each of you to back that support. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sheriff Kevin McMahill. Thank you.
So, it's funny that a few years ago when I got elected, I didn't realize this day would come around so quickly. And here we are. And so I have this great, great honor to lead the finest police department on this planet. And I thought about, okay, if I'm going to do that, sorry, Reggie. You were part of it one time. I wasn't just going to send out a press release and say, hey, I'm running for office again. We were going to go up and do what it is that this police department does every day, and that's going to knock it out of the park for this community. So, Warrior Studios, thank you. Great start here, and I'll see if I can hold up my end of the bargain now. So let me tell you, as I considered what this really looked like, and that is that just over 3 years ago, I promised you what I was going to do as your sheriff. And that really was simple. Kick the shit out of crime. I'm going to talk about that. Take care of our cops better than we've ever taken care of them. We're going to talk about that. We've become the most technologically advanced police department in this country because it saves lives. We've done all of those things. The grandson's waving at me right here. Hi, buddy. So, let's go back and let's talk a little bit about that crime fighting and when I say this part of it is literally the most important, this is our report card from you to us on how well it is that we do resolving crime, preventing crime, and holding people accountable for committing crime within our community. And I want to acknowledge that crime is down in most major American cities, so I don't want you to think I'm standing up here taking sole credit for that, because I'm not. But what I will tell you is that the 3 years that I've been sheriff, we've had double-digit decreases in homicides. And this year, over 30% reduction in homicide now. When I took over as the sheriff, the year before, there were 158 homicides. 158 people lost their lives in our community to an act of violence. Today, we're sitting at 69. I want to say that again. We're sitting at 69. These are real human beings' lives that are being saved. These are families that will have a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle sitting at the Christmas table this year because of the efforts of the men and women of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And I don't know what could make you more proud to lead a police department than literally saving human lives. Secondarily to that, robberies significantly down. Almost every single crime significantly down across the board in the Part 1 categories. But I will tell you that that's not just police work. That's not just simply the sheriff coming in and saying, go reduce crime. There's a lot that goes into that is not necessarily what meets the eye. And when I say that to you is we have exceptional partnerships on the federal level. We have a great mayor that supports the men and women of the police department. We have county commissioners all over, April and a number of others, and Councilman Knudsen, that really I meet with, and we talk about how do we improve quality of life for people and improve outcomes. And the bottom line is that what I expect and what we expect is to really get down into those corners of the community where we don't have a relationship, in places that it didn't exist previously, and begin to develop it. Because once you start to develop a relationship in a community that you don't have it in, you start to gain a little bit of trust. When you have relationship and trust, that's where the magic starts to happen, and you develop an opportunity to develop those connections that lead towards significant crime reduction. It's an improvement across the board, period. That's what's reflected in all of these numbers that we're talking about here. That's what's reflected in all of this. But I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you that while we are now the 7th largest police department in the country, I have 6,300 total employees and around 4,000 commissioned. What I have exceptional cops, exceptional detectives, led by exceptional people going out with relentless follow-up and ensuring that no crime goes unsolved. Now I will say to you, thank you. Our homicide section in Las Vegas, for over a decade now, has been solving 95+% of the homicides in our community. Think about that. Other cities that we could talk about, Chicago as an example, had less than a 30% solve rate for years. Literally, people were getting away with committing murder in those communities. No shock that more murders were occurring. But we also had an area, let me give you one simple example of something that we did within our current budget and changed the culture of the organization. And that was simply when I looked at shootings that were occurring in our jurisdiction that were not investigated by homicide. So somebody was shot and survived. Those were only being solved at a rate of about 30 to 40%. Why? Because they were decentralized. If it was narcotics related, narcotics detective investigated it. If it was domestic violence detective. Everybody except the homicide group was investigating those cases. Now for you outside law enforcement, that might not mean a whole lot to you. But when we take a whole of agency approach where everybody in the entire organization is invested in solving that case, we make a significant difference. So I took existing detective positions, I re-centralized them in what we call the violent gun crime unit, or the shoot team for brevity, and I put 20 detectives and 2 sergeants together, and now it has been so successful that we've doubled that. Our solve rate from September of last year until January was 100% on all shootings. Come on, what's your solve rate at right now for year to date this year?
98%, sir.
98% since January to now, 98% of all shootings in Las Vegas are solved by arrest. If you come here and you shoot somebody, we're going to put handcuffs on you and put you where you belong. That's in jail. Now lots of cool stuff being displayed around here, right? Low crime rates, high solve rates. But there was something that really led into what I believe is a marked change for us. And that is the promise that I made to take care of our cops in ways that we've never taken care of our cops. The mentality behind officer wellness was simply this: if we take care of our people better than they ever have, they're going to take care of this community better than they ever have. Now, this is talking about the heart, the mind, the body, and the soul of the men and women that are going out there and doing what it is that we ask them to do day in and day out. And I want you to take a minute and pause to think about what it is that our cops see every single day. I want you to pause and think about that. How many of you saw the two children got hit the other day on an e-bike in my lieutenant's press conference after that? He was literally on the verge of tears because those men and women had to go out there with that baby, scrape that baby up off the ground because of an e-bike accident. But that's just one event in one day. What these men and women go out and get exposed to regularly, every single day, every day, the trauma, the pain, the things. It's why for so many years we led in the things that you don't want to lead in. Suicide, as an example. My entire career, we have a wall of honor at Metro of police officers that gave their lives heroically in the line of duty. Today, they're all men on that wall. What we don't have is we don't have a wall for all of those that were so severely impacted by what it is that they see and hear and feel and smell and do every single day. Because if we had a wall for that, for those that took their lives in the line of duty, that wall would be 3 or 4 times what it is for those that were killed feloniously in the line of duty. So don't we as law enforcement leaders have a responsibility and an obligation to do something about it? You're damn right we do. So I did. What we did through the leadership of James Kilber, I know he's here somewhere, and Dr. James Kinney. Now you should give him a hand. They did amazing work. What we turned around and did was we took budgeted, existing, unfilled positions, so it didn't cost us any more. I don't know any law enforcement leader around the country that's taken a top position and willingly giving it up to hire clinicians to come work for the police department. Everybody said it wouldn't work. And I will tell you that this was born out of my own and my wife's own experience with 1 October. We responded to 1 October, and it's one of those moments where 58 people died here and 422 were shot with an AR-15 and 850 people were injured. And I retired not long after that, before I decided to come back and run as your sheriff. And we realized that event changed us completely. It's one of those ones where you don't sleep right, you don't feel right, you don't eat right, you don't breathe right, you don't do almost anything right because something of that magnitude that you had to see and hear and feel and smell dramatically changed us. And so I decided we're going to dramatically change the way it is we take care of those cops. And I put it in the hands of those 2 capable men, and they went out and literally changed the culture of the Metropolitan Police Department. To the tune of over 450 visits for mental health a month is happening at Metro today. In my time, Rick, in your time, Todd, in your time, we would never go, we would go to the bar. We work at, Bob Montez, there's a perfect example of a guy that's all screwed up, right? You could use a lot of the help I'm willing to get here, Bobby. But on the other side of that is I want you to know it became so successful that, all kidding aside, people like Bob who served admirably for many, many years. Retirees said, can I get in there? Spouses said, can I get in there? We hired marriage family therapists. We hired addiction treatment clinicians. We hired a gamut so that whatever they are, we can meet them wherever they are, and we can treat them and find answers for them so that we can not have people taking suicide, turning to the bottle, or doing whatever else it is, destructive behavior. We went 2 years without a suicide. That's the first time in my entire career. So the other piece that I promised was that we were going to become the most technologically advanced police department in the country. I'm not a technologist, folks. I don't even know how to turn this thing off, to be honest with you. But what I do know how to do is I know how to cast a vision, build a team, and knock down doors to allow them to do what it is they're doing. Mike Gennaro, can you stand up and wave to everybody over there? Mike's my current chief of staff. And Mike's relationships, along with many of the other folks in this room, developed what you're seeing up here today. Tomorrow we have a press conference announcing a number of these new Tesla vehicles long before they became sort of popular and unpopular, whatever the hell they were. The bottom line is that these things are upfitted, they are built with some partnerships that I'm going to announce tomorrow. They're tactically more safe for our cops. They're going to be loaded with all of this special equipment. They're going to be deployed in every area command, and they're going to be out there for these cops to take what I think is probably the coolest police car on the planet out there within our community. But I tell you that, we couple that with license plate reader, facial recognition, gunshot detection systems, the list of advanced DNA, and so many other things that we are working through within what was the Real-Time Crime Center. The Real-Time Crime Center at Metro has literally been ripped out, and we're building a new drone operations center so that the 38 drones that Mr. Horowitz and his wife bought for us that are being pre-positioned out at every area command and on fire stations that will launch eventually when a gunshot goes off, when a license plate reader goes off. They will be overhead, remotely piloted, with real-time intelligence being provided to a police officer while they're on the way because the drone is already there. Trust me, it already has saved lives and it is going to continue to save lives, and we are going to continue to utilize technology to make us an even greater police department than they already are. All right, so all that was said, that's what you did in the first term, Sheriff. We live in a world today now that it's what have you done for me lately, right? That's the truth. And so I spent a significant amount of time figuring out, what do you really want to do, Sheriff? You want to run again? I have 35 years in this job now. It's a long time. They're dog years oftentimes. I'm actually only 27. But my children, my grandchildren, we've raised our family here. We love this community. And I really believe I still have a lot more left to give to it. And so I made the decision to run again. But I also want to acknowledge there's a couple things here where we got to improve on. And that is, first and foremost, traffic fatality accidents. And we are living in a time where you are far more likely, by a factor of 2 at minimum, to actually die on our roadways than you are to be killed by somebody else in our community. I want you to think about that. As all these kids go and get their driver's license, I was actually more fearful of them potentially losing their life because of the bad driving behaviors of people in Las Vegas. Period. That's what it is. It's excessive speeds. It's drunk and drug driving. It's lots of left-hand turns and red lights and all of these kinds of things. And listen, I will fully admit to you that I went up to the legislature this last session and testified in front of them on red light cameras, and I literally got laughed out of the building. I don't deny that. But what I will also tell you is that I'll be back again next time, and I'm going to come back with a better plan, and I'm going to continue to ask those other elected officials to have some level of responsibility for the way that people are dying in our community. The facts are technology can help. And I'll give you just an anecdotal story. I was just back in Colorado where my mom and dad lived 2 weeks ago, and I was at the Major City Chiefs Convention, and I was touting all of the great numbers that we have here, and we got to the traffic fatalities, and there was an audible gasp across the room. Holy shit, Kevin, are you serious? I said, yeah, dead serious. And so it was on my mind as I was driving to meet my mom and dad for dinner. And I had my maps on because it's been a while since I'd taken this new route, and they're growing so much out there. And the maps ended up saying, caution, red light camera ahead. I hadn't heard that before. Other people laugh and say, I've never heard that. I never heard that before. But it immediately spawned me to start to look at what was happening around that intersection as I was a half mile away and I was heading towards it. Nobody ran a red light. Nobody sped up. When the light turned yellow, everybody stopped. There were no fender benders. There were no nothing. People's driving behavior changed. Period. Technology can help us change driving behavior. All of you have driven on Boulder Highway, right? At one time it was a highway. It's not a highway anymore. We all drive 60. I'm guilty of it too. You get on that road and we drive fast down that roadway. Why? It's construction designed that way. That's also the leading area that we have for pedestrians being mowed over in our community and dying. I'm going to go back to the wellness piece of this again. Probably the largest group of people in my organization that are impacted by trauma right now are not only my fatal accident detectives, but my crime scene investigators that have to go out there and document these things over and over and over again. Why wouldn't we try something like that? But it's also very clear to me that I need to do a better job to make each and every single person in this community realize that traffic safety is your responsibility as well. This is not solely a police problem. We're not holding drunken and drug offenders nearly responsible in the criminal justice system like they need to be. Starting to see a little bit of change on some of these sentences in the last couple of weeks. But the reality of it is, if you kill somebody, you could potentially only do 2 years. We need the support for the governor's changes in this crime bill to increase those penalties. And I don't think we're talking about a partisan effort here. I think we're talking about a human being effort. This is about human beings and making sure that if you take the life of another human being, that you're held accountable to that. Safer roads is a big, big part of what I'm going to do over the course of the next couple of years as your sheriff. There's lots of ideas. I just attended that traffic summit. Lots of ideas coming out around that. But it also made me realize that I'm one voice. And what I need to do with my voice is amplify it so that so many others of you that have influence and impact can utilize your voices to make sure that we come up with solutions that are focused in on saving people's lives. You'll see Secured Future up here. It really had a lot of conversation. I want to tell you another sort of story around this. A good friend of mine was the number one intelligence guy in New York City for many years, and the mayor knows this very well. The way that the federal government ranks our city when it comes to terrorism threat is really the most screwed up funding that you can ever come up with. It makes zero sense. But he and I went to Israel together just recently. And while we were in Israel, we were obviously working with the Israelis on all the challenges that were happening literally 360 around them. And we started talking about really what the threat is to each major American city. And what I'll tell you is that he said to me, Kevin, I've always believed that Las Vegas was second behind New York. Well, when you come to our rankings, we're 17 or 19 or whatever it is, because we don't have ports and bridges and a number of things that they utilize for these rankings. And so I asked him why, and he said, well, what more iconic city other than New York City? Of course, he's going to keep New York in there since that's his bread and butter. But where else would you have the kind of impact that you're going to have if you're a terrorist group and you want to hit a city? Las Vegas is it. We represent everything they hate. You have the New York City skyline. Planet Hollywood used to be the Aladdin. We have vice and drinking and all kinds of stuff. Like, we party 24/7 because we're Vegas, right? They hate everything we represent. And I've been involved in the Homeland Security arena for a long time. And I will tell you, F1, another Super Bowl getting ready to come here, New Year's Eve, the list goes on and on and on. And without Metro doing what needs to be done, those events won't come to this city. And so we have to continue to reinvent what Homeland Security looks like in our community, because lots of people want to tell us how to do it. But the reality of it is that the police department has become literally experts at staffing these events and keeping these events safe, so much so that most of you go to bed and wake up never having realized that my friend Kendall Bell over there deployed 1,200 police officers to keep Las Vegas and the Strip safe damn near every weekend. You know, the other challenge here for me really on the stronger communities piece is we still have lots of places that we need to get into. We still have lots of relationships that we need to build. We still have, you know, since I became your sheriff, I started building different groups of alliances. Hispanic Alliance, Black Alliance, LGBTQ Alliance, the list goes on and on and on. And some of them are far more effective than others. But what I will tell you is that we have as much listening and learning to do as we have to developing programming within those places. Because the things that you develop, say, for a Filipino community are different than maybe what you develop for the African American community in West Las Vegas. It's what resonates with people is what it is that you have to build. We're pretty good at it, but we need to get better. And the reason that I'm excited about Reggie being the Henderson chief and Jackie being the North Las Vegas chief and a number of others is that we need to do it regionally. We need to take wellness regionally, we need to take security regionally, and we need to go in with the city marshals and every other aspect of law enforcement and first responder community and do it better than we ever have. Because this community is going to need it when the time comes. It's also why we're working on expanding and developing. We're getting ready to do a ribbon cutting in the city of Las Vegas for one of our area commands. And we're also in the process of building the, we'll call it the Hollywood Area Command over in East Las Vegas, which is going to be another opportunity for us to put more cops closer to the neighborhoods that they work and to do amazing things where it is that they work. Look, the other piece of this is that part of what I wanted to do here today in having a technologically advanced opening to this is I wanted you guys to think, as I said, I'm not a technologist, but I want you to know this. Let's invite some of those folks in that are online to see what it is that we're doing here. I think you see some of them back here. This was an opportunity for us to engage people at home that couldn't make it. The venue's obviously very small here from the perspective of this type of event. But I wanted to include people in ways we haven't done that before. So I think there's one of them back there, which is my daughter up here, Darby McMahill. Hi, Darby. Can you say hi? Yep, we can't hear you, but that's all right. I can read your lips. You said, I love you, Dad. That's her twin is sitting right down front here, and she's off in college in Montana, and she was very upset that she wasn't going to, she's playing soccer and doing great stuff up there, so there she is. You say hi, Darby?
Hello.
Okay, Darby, thank you. And then I think my brother was also going to be up there. I don't see him. Jason? Is he wearing pants? That's what I want. Because if it's my brother, he's very likely not wearing pants.
Oh yeah, so the host there had me unmuted, so it's a good thing you're going to do 4 more years because we still know you're not a very good fisherman.
You're not supposed to say that now, or I cut him off. But it's a kind of a fun way, and really part of also what I wanted to do with all of this was, oh, there's my sister down there. It looks like she's frozen. There's my sister Megan out in Colorado with my mom and dad and everybody, and hi Meg. Hi.
Hi, Kev.
So, really it's a family affair and an opportunity to let people that wouldn't necessarily be able to be here and be involved. But it was also about, we made history when I ran for sheriff. We went to the Water Street Parade for St. Patrick's Day, and we had so many people wearing our green shirts that I think it was like 400 something, and they wouldn't let us join the parade the following year. So I think they're letting that happen again. I'm not 100% sure, but the point is that I just wanted to do this in a way we hadn't done it before, but also what I'm asking you all is that the truth is running the police department and running a campaign is hard. The first thing for me is I have to run this police department. That matters the most to me. But also in building an army with you, taking the signs, spread the word. Apparently the shirts didn't get here yet, but we'll get them to you because we've got the good stuff again. But building this army to go out and make sure that we scare off anybody who even thinks about running for re-elect or running against me for election, that we can go continue to take the finest police department in the country and move it to the next level. So I'm extremely grateful for each one of you, not only for your financial support, because unfortunately that is part of what it is that we have to do to run, but across the board, across the aisle, I'm here to listen and to make a difference, and I hope you all join me in painting this town green again here very, very soon. So thank you for coming.